Network Nova's the Friday Power Lunch, and we've been away for 2 weeks, and now we're back in the saddle. We're so happy to be here. It felt like a year I was really being gone from you all, so we're so glad that you enjoyed dancing into Under Pressure by a really cool group called Blooming Vows. And they made that song for the lockdown during the pandemic in honor of all the frontline workers, to bring a little joy in your life, and that idea how we have to support each other during this time. And especially with all these crazy events going on, it certainly is a great way to start the Friday. So I am so happy to bring this theme with you. We've been working on this now a couple weeks. Today's theme is fighting the good fight, ending gun violence from the bottom up. So we have a great guest to start it. I like to bring them up on the screen one by one to say hello. And let's start with Dr. Benjamin Albers. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Now, we don't want to make you tardy for class because you will be teaching today.
I do have some time, and I wouldn't miss it. So,
well, good. We're interested to learn about the militias in Virginia. So happy you're here. So thank you, Doctor. We'll see you soon. And then we are so excited to have on somebody that a lot of you know, many of you love for her continued passion about ending gun violence. Shannon Watts, founder of Moms Demand Action. How are you?
Good morning.
Is that your Princess Diana wave? I like it. Hi, good to see you. I'm so glad you decided to join us, and we're so excited to hear about what you guys are going to be doing coming up. And also, you're in a friendly room with a lot of the people you know and love.
Yes, I see a lot of red shirts.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shannon. So happy you're here. And then we're super excited and stoked, of course, to have on two great women demand activists and also candidates. Melanie, hello. And also Sarah Bagley. How are you guys doing? You're muted.
Very well. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
we're very, very excited.
Yeah, I know. It's great probably to be back with all your friends in the room, and we're excited to hear about you guys and running for office and how your activism influenced your decision to step up. So great to see you. All right.
Thanks.
And then we have to have also with public safety needs policy. So we have Britta Brown Whitehead. How are you? Group leader from Chesapeake. Where are you at? Oh, there she is. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it, and I love being here. So thank y'all very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much as well. We'll be excited to have that conversation with you. And then we will also bring up from a rural perspective, how are you, Katie Fox, Virginia State Red Flag lead and Commonwealth Project co-lead of Moms Demand Action. How about that?
Hi there, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good, you're looking good. I see you have all your buttons on. You're looking good.
Yep, my survivor, I always wear Sean. Sean Moss has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I know. We are probably a lot of people on people's minds today, and your group obviously is carrying those people every day in their hearts. So we're so glad, Sarah, that you're here. Katie, sorry, that you're here. A lot of names. All right, so we'll talk to you soon, and then we will, during this power lunch, have a roundtable, and after the roundtable, we will bring up friend Zach. Hey, Zach Mooney from Supermajority.
Well, hey, Catherine. I'm so excited to be friends already.
Where's your Chihuahua? Do you have your Chihuahua? I know you're in Provincetown. Did you?
I do. Yes, I know. I should go get my Chihuahua by the time you guys get to me in the program. I can go grab.
I think you should, because we love special guests, and we always have some bombs of cats and photo. They come in the screen.
And he's a pandemic puppy too, and I'm sure folks in this call are familiar with people who've produced some pandemic pets. So I'm very excited to have a chance to be in community with y'all today.
Oh yeah, so glad that you're here too. So super. So thank you, Zach, for bringing it. We'll look forward to seeing. Is it Leslie?
Leslie, yes. Oh my gosh,
yes,
so
Leslie.
Good. Look at you.
No, I know. I love. Maybe Boo will come in later, my pup. So thank you, Zach. I'm looking forward to talking about what women are bringing the power of supermajority, especially in this upcoming election. So thank you, Zach. So for a reminder for everybody, first of all, let's wave. Oh my gosh, it's like group hug. I see a lot of great faces out there. Good to see everybody back also. And what you can do for us is remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, put your thumbs up on our videos, and follow us on social media. And also stick around for the after chat, our favorite part. I'm sure today we'll have a lot to catch up on. We could even, have a great little session. And most importantly, become a patron, support our show. This helps us afford just the little things like the Zoom platform and stuff like that. And we appreciate all the support. And in fact, how about that we have some new patrons that signed up? And I don't know if they're in the room, but if you are, raise your hand. Dorothy Firschling, Jan Calloway, Marianne Anderson, Mindy Mitchell, Charlotte Gibson. I know she's now Charlottesville, and Kathleen Barnett. And we just got 3 today, Mary Tamburino, Ellen Claire Lamb, and girlfriend, Francesca Constantino. I don't know if Francesca's in the room today, but we're certainly so excited I'm just trying to look for her, that she's here. And thank you for that support. It means a heck of a lot to us. So next, let's bring up, I know you missed them all, the Friday lunch team, Robin, Rosemarie, Stair, come up on the screen. So Robin is our show wizard. And what did you do on your summer vacation, the 2 weeks?
Well, I went and visited family in Washington State. I was from one side of the state to the other, driving, always wearing our masks, only with people who were vaccinated.
Ooh, it was an exclusive vacation. That's hard to find.
Just family.
Well, we're glad you're back. You do so much to produce the show. We really appreciate you. So it's glad to see you in the room. And I'd love to bring up Rosemarie Savino, who is always in the background, but she is in the forefront of so much of our production. Hi, Rosemarie. How are you doing?
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a moment to draw everyone's attention to a significant day tomorrow, the 20th anniversary of September 11th. I have a lot of New Yorker stories to tell because I am a New Yorker, born and bred. I was that morning in my car driving to work, looking over my shoulder at a picture perfect fall morning, seeing the Trade Center, the Twin Towers, not realizing that before my day was over, my city would be changed forever, my country would be changed forever. In fact, the world would be changed forever. So what I want to remind everybody is tomorrow is for mourning, for remembering, and for praying. And on the 12th, we pick ourselves up, we show our resilience, and we keep fighting the good fight. And that's what we're here about today.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosemarie. I know, bringing that New York power to this room and also your badassery and everything you do. We appreciate you on the team. And thank you for that nice call out for tomorrow. It's September 11th. As you said, I looked at today, that blue sky. So, thanks. Thank you, Sink. Thank you. And lastly, Ambassador of Buzz is here. And how are you doing? How was your summer vacation? I don't think it was very relaxing.
Well, I was multitasking a lot. So the first week I wrapped up some things from the Women's Summit while I recovered from tonsillitis.
Yes. Ooh.
And the second week, the 3 grandkids came with my daughter, Austin Stair, and we had a really, really great time. And my other daughter, Cynthia Catherine, CK, came, and she is pregnant, due October 18th.
Wow.
With a baby boy. So this is very exciting for her and for all of us. And we had a baby shower and we had a lot of fun doing that. And we did a lot of swimming and fun stuff. But I also became aware that we got a march.
Yeah, we got a march. So tell us what we're doing. Tell us about the march.
Okay, so we're organizing right now. We're going to say that we're going to meet at the carousel. That could change.
First, back up what you're talking about. March.
Okay. So we're going to march. 75,000 women marches from every state in the country have pledged to march to defend abortion on October 2nd. All right. We got to speak up for this. We got to get out there. We got to let them hear our voice. So sorry about
All right,
that.
and every year, like when we got started, we, Virginia team, always, when we went to DC, we met at the carousel on the mall. And we're not sure what time yet because we don't know about the details of the march, but I appreciate that we'll be leading that kind of, for Virginia, we're hoping to get a lot of people in, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And I've been talking to people, and that's my report.
Well, one more report. Let's bring it up on the screen, Robin, because you know we always we're women that like swag.
Oh
We love
yes,
to get the
sorry
message
about
out.
this.
Yeah.
So now we've decided that rather than just lose money, let's lose a little money, but also give some money to someone else. So we now are having our beach towels with 25% proceeds to Moms Demand Action. I hope you will buy 1 or 2 of them. They're so fabulous. They really are the best. Soft, comfy, bright, big.
Yes.
Okay.
They are cool. They are cool. So thank you for that. And please, we'll put that in the chat. I love how Stair does that. We don't like to lose money. No, we don't. But we love swag. And also on our site, if you do postcards, you can also purchase postcards on the Badass Boutique. So thank you, awesome Ambassador Buzz. Take care of the back.
Oh yes, and I did want to say one more thing. Sorry. Okay. I'm putting tweets in the chat. Okay, so help me tweet.
Okay, tweet away. So I know we're already running a minute or 2 over because that's what we do. So if we don't want to make Dr. Albers late for class, and you are a sociology professor at Bridgewater College. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's get right to it. Let's talk about, we're talking about gun sense policy. We're talking about guns, but we really felt today we wanted to give our audience the background of the militia movement, also in the militia movement in Virginia, and how that ties to gun policy and even how it ties to the Second Amendment. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give us some insight about all this.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the chance to join you today. The way I've studied the militia, the phrase I like to use, we can see them as kind of an amplified echo of some fairly mainstream ideas or ideas held by more mainstream gun owners. So, I guess it's important to note that simply owning a gun doesn't make a person a member of the militia, but we're talking about sort of the most diehard, hardcore supporters of a particular reading of the Second Amendment. And so the militias take, themes that are sort of prevalent in American politics more generally, the idea that we protect our individual rights against government intrusion and things of that sort, but sort of, as I say, amplify them, take them up to 11. So, I think most people probably first became familiar with the militia movement in the mid-90s in the aftermath of the Oklahoma City
Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah. And it's important to note that actually he was, at the time, scholars of the militia tended to make a distinction between, say, white supremacists on the extreme right and militias as the radical right. And I would argue that distinction is less meaningful today. I think if we look at the events of January 6th, for example, we see sort of a convergence of a variety, sort of a whole mosaic of radical right-wing organizations. So groups that we might have thought of as being militias, I think, are incorporating more supremacist ideologies and rhetoric. As a whole, I think that what motivates the militias is this very intense desire to be, it's sort of like the Gadsden flag, don't tread on me. They want to be left alone. And in particular, they then see firearms ownership as being sort of an embodiment of that individual freedom, that the ability to own the means of violence without government interference is sort of what motivates them. But of course, whereas I think most gun owners really even support the idea of common sense gun laws, we see a sort of amplified echo of that among the militias and the more extreme organizations, where even the slightest degree of regulation is seen as a serious infringement. Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry, I can't.
I know, because I heard people come in the house. So I decided to mute myself where someone started yelling. So what's interesting also is looking back over some of the history of the rise of the militia, even in our country and the Constitution, you see this going all the way back to the British. Give us a little historical perspective, and also intertwine with the idea of racism against slavery, and making sure that slaves didn't own guns, and then later, in the Constitution, they would refer to Negroes in the constitutional laws of not owning guns, and how that is meaningful to this understanding of guns and the rise of, even under Obama, with the militia in reaction to a Black president. Yeah, well, I mean, I think arguably the Second Amendment and the militia clause in particular was included essentially as a way of hedging bets and earning support among people who were nervous about centralized federal authority. The idea that there could be this idea that the people could still retain ownership of the means of violence, frankly, which some political sociologists think is ultimately the root of the state. So the militia clause was likely included so that people nervous about centralized federal authority could have something to lean on. I think it's important to draw a distinction, though, between modern groups that refer to themselves as the militias and what was likely the original militia, which before we had a powerful centralized army, I mean, was sort of the Minuteman who would come running if there was a problem. I think in the aftermath of the Civil War, I mean, the Civil War, in a sense, we could argue, I mean, it was obviously about slavery and about white supremacy, but I think another key theme there was this mistrust of central authority, this reaction against federalism. And so certainly from there on in, the idea of being able to at least threaten armed resistance to perceived government tyranny became a hallmark of all of the groups and organizations that sort of energized the militias, right? So the militias emerge, they sort of emerge and then wane depending on how well they feel their voice is being represented in DC. So you mentioned, I mean, certainly during the Obama administration, we saw a tremendous resurgence of right-wing activity as a backlash. During the former administration, oddly enough, these anti-government groups suddenly became quite pro-government in their support. Well, that was an interesting jump that they pointed out in this research I read, that it's more dangerous when you align with a political figure. Some of these, I mean, you see militias used in other countries even to carry out the actions of a government. They can do it more criminally. They can do, it's kind of crazy. So when you see that alignment actually in our country, that's kind of a scary signal. And I think that's where you can see January 6th, right? Right. Yeah. I mean, if we look at sort of the origins of the modern militia movement in the 80s and 90s, we can describe them as a sort of radically libertarian group. They really wanted to be, I think January 6th shows that a lot of the militias have become a more sort of authoritarian group, where they're even calling for Myanmar-style coups, or they're expressing admiration for what the Taliban's been able to accomplish in Afghanistan. Again, I don't want to paint with too broad a brushstroke here, but I do think that there's certainly the elephant in the room is over the last few years. I think that supremacist and radical right-wing ideologies have found a very loud voice in all levels of government. And so it's probably not surprising that they are modifying their rhetoric to be more defenders of the state rather than potential resistors of the state. Yeah, well, and wrapping up, let's tie this then to Virginia and gun policy and your view, of how you see that even moving forward. And is this going to just keep, this kind of tension between the two of obviously gun ownership, but also when some policy where we want to have common sense laws about it for public safety and so forth. What is your vision of that for Virginia, especially in this election? Right. I mean, I think that there are some parallel trends emerging. I think that over the last, say, 20 years, conservative political parties, the Republican Party, has sort of tried to tap into the energy and the enthusiasm and the anger, quite frankly, on the more radical right wing of the party. And in doing so,
I think in hoping to pull those members into the center, they've actually pulled themselves to the right.
Right, yes.
And so I think, and if we look at gun advocacy groups like the NRA or Gun Owners of America, I think the same thing has happened. I think that they see this source of energy they can tap into. They see that, this source of anger that can motivate people, or fear that can motivate people.
Right.
And so I think even these organizations, I mean, the NRA originally focused a lot more on gun safety than worrying about the New World Order,
Exactly.
And so I think
Until they were taken over by Russians. Let's just make that
Right.
clear. Okay.
Right,
Just
right.
saying, okay.
Or the shadow government or the UN or whoever was.
You're moving to Texas. They used to be right in Tyson's. I don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
So I think in terms of, so in some ways they hope to bring them into the center, but I think as a result, they've gotten pulled over. So even those, I guess we can call them mainstream organizations, I think in some ways now are beholden to people who feel that even the slightest degree of regulation could be
Common sense.
as an abomination, right? And so I don't know to what degree there's any will to pursue common sense
Right.
gun control, but it would be completely dwarfed by sort of the angry voices from the right. And so I suspect then that any movement towards reform of any sort is going to be met with, and we've seen this, will be met
Right.
with very, very intense and strident opposition, because it has been framed as almost a sort of apocalyptic struggle for our survival as a republic, or our survival as
Yes.
white men, or whatever, we're worried
Well,
about.
and I think, interesting, and I know we'll wrap up to let you go.
Sure.
I think that's where I feel like the tie-in to racism is really important, white supremacy. And I think in this country with 300 million so guns, that the idea that we needed them, why we're so unique to, from other countries, is this idea how long we had slavery and how much you needed guns to keep people down, right?
Sure.
So it's so intertwined that it's really hard to kind of dig out of it. But so we appreciate you being here.
Sure.
Yeah, and we hope to, continue the good work. And I know that maybe this group very well, and they totally recommended you. And thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate the chance to talk today. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Albers.
Take
Have a
care.
good one. Tell class what good work you did today. You got an A, so good. And next up, Shannon Watts. How are you, Shannon? And
I'm good.
Good to see you. So give us a little. People do know you, but let's talk about you and how you founded this group, and then get right into, especially now, like after kids are going back to school. I'm sure that this is on a lot of people's mind about how kids had this little break from gun violence, and it's something else for our country to be always still struggling in this area of reform. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here today, and thrilled to see so many Moms Demand Action volunteers. And you're going to hear from some of them later. But, Moms Demand Action started the day after the Sandy Hook school shooting tragedy. So in December of 2012. Is that right? No, sorry, December of 2014. I get my dates wrong. I get mixed up the date and the month.
Somebody in the chat will help us in a minute.
Yes, yes.
Date issue.
It'll be 9 years in December, so someone's going to have to do the subtraction. But
well, and I call it the pandemic fog. I don't know about you, but I forgot 2 years.
Also menopause, so it's like all the
menopause
fogs. Yeah. But it'll be 9 years in December. And at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom in Indiana, in a suburb of Indianapolis, and saw the news coming in about the tragedy. And like everyone, I'm sure, on this conversation, I sort of just stopped everything I was doing, sat down, watched this unfold. And, the fact that 20 children and 6 educators could be murdered in the sanctity of an American elementary school was what it took to get so many of us off the sidelines finally. And I say that as a white suburban mom who really didn't pay attention to this issue until I became afraid that my kids weren't safe in their schools. Shame on me and anyone who had sort of turned a blind eye to these tragedies, not just school shootings or mass shootings, which are about 1% of the gun violence in this country, but really the everyday gun violence, whether it's gun suicide or gun homicide, that has been tearing at the communities throughout America for a long time. And often it's been Black and brown women on the front line of this issue with very little attention whatsoever. But that said, when I started getting involved, when so many other, particularly women and moms, started getting involved, realizing that we needed to come together and organize really in the same way the NRA had for decades, right? So showing up at every single gun bill hearing, making sure we had relationships with our lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, working on this in city councils and school boards and in state houses and obviously in the Capitol, in boardrooms, like just changing the culture of gun violence in this country. And really, we've been working on this in 3 ways. So first, we have been working on this electorally, and there's really been a sea change in the politics of gun safety in the last decade. We had gun sense candidates win in the House that flipped the House in 2018 to be a gun sense majority. Obviously, we flipped the General Assembly in Virginia in 2019. This was one of the top issues for voters in that election. We won the White House in 2020, the Senate in 2021, not by running away from this issue, but by running on it. And really, we have made this issue one of the most important issues to voters in the country. We also work on this legislatively. So we have passed hundreds of gun safety laws in red, blue, and purple states since we started working on this really in 2013. Background checks, now 21 states and DC have them. 19 states and DC have enacted red flag laws. 29 states and DC have passed laws that keep guns away from domestic abusers. Right. 20 states and DC have closed what we call the Charleston loophole. It gives authorities longer than 3 business days to complete a background check. 11 states have passed secure gun storage laws. 13 states have passed meaningful police reform bills just since 2020. We work on those as well. Obviously, police violence is gun violence. And just this year alone, in a state with a really tough electoral map, we were able to get state legislatures to pass over 30 gun safety laws, and we also blocked dozens of attempts by the gun lobby to weaken laws, right? We have about a 90% track record of stopping the NRA year after year. And then we unlock dollars for violence intervention programs, about $250 million in the last year, and that's really a new record. And then we work on this culturally. So we have seen over 150 companies calling for background checks and red flag laws. We've gotten dozens of companies to ban open carry in their stores. And, we've changed the way people feel about this issue. About 90% of voters support background checks. That includes 89% of Republicans, 89% of gun owners. So just huge change all across the board, really, because volunteers show up every single day.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, your group is really powerful. You see the power of moms organizing. I saw in 2019, all through the election, because we're activists and we run in the same circles, showing up when Mike Bloomberg was here and seeing the power and the force and the dedication and the door knocking. Virginia could not have been flipped without the moms. There's no doubt in my mind. And then you see, and I'm getting teary-eyed looking at Melanie, you see them standing up to run for office now, which I'd love to talk to you about that. What you're doing with that power of you can see the evolution that has produced now candidates that are running. And so tell us about that, especially in Virginia, what you're doing in this election, and also about these wonderful women that are standing up to now run for office.
So if you're a volunteer, a Moms Demand Action or Students Demand Action volunteer, you can go to demandaseat.org. And tell us you want to run for office. It can be anything, right? Women hold, and you don't have to be a woman, but women hold less than 25% of the 500,000 elected positions in this country. And it really is sort of this logical next step. Once you become a volunteer and you're shaping policy, you just sort of logically want to start making the policy. You know, having spent a lot of time in the Capitol and in state houses, I can tell you that the 80% of lawmakers in this country who are men are not rocket scientists. If you are caring and compassionate and really just passionate about any issue, including gun safety, you would make a great lawmaker. And we have about 10 Moms Demand Action volunteers who are running for office just in Virginia this year. Wow. You're going to hear from a few of them today, but you know, they can't do this alone. They need our support, and demandaseat.org is one way to tap into this grassroots power of Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action that can help you run for office. But you know, that's what requires change requires of all of us, which is to sort of step off the sidelines and give our time and our commitment to forcing social change.
Now, do you see, and will you be, or your group plan to be at the doors? Are you seeing now this getting involved now in Virginia? Because I really believe that we need to make this policy stick, we have to hold the state blue, and that our enthusiasm coming out on this issue has to be there. I mean, it strikes me that all these people showing up at school board meetings talking about there's child safety, not to wear a mask. These same people don't seem to show up when they're talking about gun safety, common sense stuff. It just kind of drives me a little crazy to see those even happening, that is what their priority is. But with that aside, I'm going off on a tangent, but what's the plan for Virginia? And do you think every town, do you see that the money coming back in to this state from like the Mike Bloombergs of the world helping us with this fight, or what's your beat on that?
Yeah, we are all in for the 2021 elections, obviously also including in Virginia. I'll be in the state next week. And
where were you?
I'm going to be up and down the state, so we're still putting together my agenda, but definitely there to help turn out voters and get out the vote. I was there, in 2019 as well, and our volunteers knocked tens of thousands of doors, and I think made over 100,000 phone calls all across the state. And so we will, again, be there from Richmond to Charlottesville, and making sure that we are keeping Virginia, keeping our gun sense majority there.
Yay. Well, I'm excited, and I hope that we get to see you on your tour of Virginia. We definitely appreciate all that you do, and keep up that fight. And if you could stick around, please do, because we'll have a roundtable if we have time at the end. But I'd love to bring up some friends of yours that Melanie Cornelisse and Sarah Bagley. So Melanie, how are you, Melanie? Candidate for delegate. And Sarah Bagley, candidate for Alexandria City Council. So let's get to it, ladies. Let's start with Melanie, and let's just talk about it. About this issue and what inspired you. You're obviously running for office now. So
I am running for office. Yeah. And it's interesting because, when I joined Moms Demand Action 5 years ago, I came to see in being a part of Moms Demand Action that it is a great incubator for anybody who wants to get more involved in politics, for sure, because just the training in organizing people, the training in learning how to speak to a legislator, the training in the fact that the organization is so well equipped to follow Virginia law and tell us which laws we should support and why, and which ones we aren't supporting and why, and do that, kind of be the bridge between our legislators and the legislation and ordinary people like me. and the people who want to do the kind of work that I want to do.
Right.
I think that they have been phenomenal at that. They also, and again, we're not exclusive to women, but we are majority of women, and you can easily see when you get involved with Moms Demand Action that these were women who were executives and women who were business owners right from the start, and they used all of those skills to become very highly politically effective, right? And so those were skills that I didn't have at the beginning by any means. I was interested in them, I could see the value of them, but I didn't know how to do them myself. And I was trained entirely, for free over years and years of just doing it, because I didn't know any better.
I love how you said incubator too, and
really, right. It was for me. I had mentors within local groups who were a year or two farther along than I was, who said, listen, I was right there where you were a year ago. Don't be intimidated by this. You can do this. I will show you how. And I think that's really the power of moms to right. just get you over that hump where you're thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, until moving into, but I still care about it, and that's enough for now, and I'll just work it out, and it won't be perfect, and half the time in the meetings my little one will be in my lap, and everybody's cool with that, because right. everybody understands that's how we get work done. We go canvassing with our strollers, and
right.
we're doing the right things while people are in our ear asking us what's for dinner. Like,
moms can multitask.
That's how we all do, right?
Multitask. And so that's awesome. So I love to bring Sarah in. So piggyback on that, Sarah. How was that for you being in Moms, and then now in your role stepping up to run for city council in Alexandria?
Yeah, so I think to second everything Melanie just said, completely, and to add to it, I'd say two more things. One is it gives you the confidence as well that this is an issue people do want to talk about, that when when I knock a door and somebody sees this shirt, they go, oh yeah. And like immediately I am welcome. I am, the conversation has started and I haven't even said anything yet. And I think, being a part of this advocacy shows you that all those stats that Shannon just gave about, the support for background checks, the support for these issues, it's real. And when you are on the doors, and when you're making appeals, it's very obvious. And I think that's something really valuable that I think Melanie and I have both gotten from this movement. And the other thing that has allowed, for me, and I think speaking for other candidates, is when you decide to take this big leap, you're not making it alone either. It's one thing to go to a great college and learn a lot of stuff, or do a week-long training session and then you graduate. That's not this group. Those of us who have stepped up to try this have, I know who's got my back. Yes. I was at an event last night, a campaign event, and I had people say to me, oh, I voted for you because so-and-so told me to. And it was 9 times out of 10, it was a Moms Demand Action volunteer that had done that outreach. So that's also
I love that too. That power of a girlfriend telling you, this is who and why, and
that interpersonal, that personal referral is so powerful. And so I think, as an incubator, as a methodology to entering, public service, it both prepares you, but also makes you feel supported and uplifted. And I would encourage anybody who's interested and curious to, attend a virtual meeting, come see us we're always at farmers markets, and we're tabling and we're talking about Be Smart. There's a lot of ways to get involved, and we'd love to see you.
That's great. And so we know that we've had you on before because, one, we love you, want you to win. We feel like moms are also our sister friends and activists in all we do together. So I'll be excited to, support you guys as well, and hopefully have you back when you win. And even if you don't, as we say, we love that you stood up. And I'm sure that, I don't know, Shannon could speak to this later, that never thinking starting this group that she was making an incubator of hatching out some women that are running for office. You get right into something, and the little delights that come later, you don't even plan for. That's why we have the power lunch. Never planned for it. it happened. And so great for you guys. So thank you, because we want to call up somebody you know also well, Britta Brown Whitehead, group leader, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, and Suffolk, and from Moms Demand Action. And let's get into policy, and let's get into you. Let's find out a little bit about you, and also what you're doing to also get the Black community involved in this. Obviously, like Shannon had mentioned, this affects, we know that this affects white and Black and Asian, everybody, but really in the Black community, this has been something that that we have to look at, that's very important, super important, and you've been struggling with it, as well. So tell us about what you're doing around policy and what you're doing in the Black community around this issue, and why is it any different in activism?
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Catherine, and for the ladies for just inviting my sisters, right, for inviting me to this wonderful, amazing power lunch. Girls, I just love it. Guys, I love it. I love everybody. So I just want to say thank you so much. Want to say one of the things I am doing in the community, and I also want to say thank you to Shannon for for birthing this organization. Even though it came out of tragedy, it was your heart and what you saw that really helped form what needed to happen in the United States, because we just didn't have that voice. And a lot of times when I go and talk to people, I talk about my personal experience, and I tell people, they talk about gun violence, and what they do is that they make it statistics. I try to make sure that as we're sitting down talking to these politicians, I take my little glasses off and say, you're not talking about a statistic, you're talking about my child. Mm-hmm. You're talking about the moms I've seen out there who are at the graves every other week crying because their son has been murdered. We have to make a change. Mm-hmm. And so when I went through, tragically, it'll be 2 years next week that my son was taken from me. And I have those conversations with people. Mm-hmm. I really do. And it's so important that in the African-American community, it's such a huge impact. One thing we are doing, we're doing the Be Smart message, and we're also partnering with, and I started this here in our area, with the National African American Gun Association, because I want to make sure we had a positive viewpoint as far as African Americans and gun ownership. A lot of times young people, the only time they see gun ownership is through what they see on the television or the videos. So I was able to actually bring in former military officers and former military leaders to talk about gun safety and how to be safe, and talk to a lot of parents. We did it at our first tabling event in the city of Suffolk, and we were targeted to do the same thing really on the waterfront in Virginia Beach, but COVID got me, and I'm vaccinated, so y'all be careful. So COVID got me.
You did say that. I'm glad you're healthy and back, but I think that's a warning to us all how you were able to get it even vaccinated. So
my whole family, it went through the whole family.
It's a family thing, I guess.
Yeah, it went through the whole family. So, but wanted to really say, I'm just really focused on really trying to pull back those layers, especially in the African American community, and bringing the politicians down to actually have a conversation. So when my son passed away, my father has been in politics for years. I had politicians coming, hugging me, talking to me, but when it came time to standing up against end of violence, a lot of them didn't have the backbone. I could say that, the backbone to stand up to a lot of the gun lobbyists. And so we had those crucial conversations, and I think we do have some movement. And so I just want to encourage everybody, if you can, support these community organizations. And I know that we do, but every little penny helps, because we are not getting a lot of money and funding for these community organizations. And what happens is, they're the ones that people feel comfortable talking to. They're the ones that people see on a day-to-day basis. And they're the ones that are fighting the good fight. We have the ones that are working through the law, which we need to have, and then the ones that are working on that front line, trying to change the culture, trying to change that information and trying to change the dynamics on the ground.
No, and it seems like to me, this is where the real work is done in these small groups to support each other in these networks. And I'm sure during the pandemic, hard to get together, but still on Zoom, or basically, is that where you were? Do you hold community groups, and how do you do the support in the communities basically now with COVID? Is it harder?
Well, we started doing more activities outside because, everything was lifted, and that was, in the beginning of the summer. We did a couple of bike rides. I was working with a young lady out of Portsmouth, Monica Atkins, Stop the Violence in Portsmouth, Big Homies in Portsmouth. They're doing a lot of activities. Portsmouth is really moving the needle, and you can see that. They're really doing some good things. I'm trying to also mimic that in Suffolk, Virginia. We're having a little challenges there. So trying to still have that conversation with the mayor, as well as in Chesapeake as well. Because we continue to see those gun violence going up. And we need to be able to have that conversation to stop.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic. And it's a good segue to our next guest. In the sense of the pandemic, you have suicide rates going up. You had gun ownership. I mean, people were buying guns like it was the end of the world. And this must have really created just so much more work for this, just in general, around this issue of safety. And then in isolation and mental illness. I mean, really, to have access to guns when, during this time, and then how everybody's just so angry. So Britta, stick around if you can. And we love the work you're doing. Please continue that. And if you want to put your action links in there for raising money, please do. You have a great group that may throw some dollars at you in the group. So Katie Fox, looking good. How are you? And you were telling me about your buttons, if you want to talk about those that you always wear.
Yeah, so I am a survivor of gun violence as well. I lost a good friend in high school to gun suicide. He would have been saved by the secure storage methods that we talk about and that we push through our legislature. On the other side of it, I wouldn't be here without responsible gun ownership.
Yeah, because you are a gun owner, and this is where
I am a gun owner. I was raised by gun owners who were raised by gun owners. My family wouldn't have survived 2 generations ago without gun ownership. Both sides of my family.
What do you mean by that?
So both sides of my family were poor, and there was a time where my mom's dad's dad had passed away, and he was still a teenager. He was the oldest of 6. Had to get food on the table somehow, because mom did some basic stitching work, and that was her job in a job.
Right.
The 50s. So, and then my dad's mom's side is from Southwest Virginia, a little town called Hillsville. It's a very small town.
Right.
But it was a mining town, so they didn't have a lot. So that knowledge of gun ownership was passed down through the generations. And I wouldn't be here if my dad hadn't locked up his guns. I still to this day don't know where the keys are to the gun safes. But I know that if I had known that in middle school, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, because this is a little background in the sense of that you are you're the co-lead the chapters, the Commonwealth Project, and you are so the state's red flag lead. And some people may not know exactly what that is, but that you are also the part of the Everytime Survivor Network. And this is your work and survivor of both suicide loss and ideation. explain to me about what suicide ideation, and you're passionate about this because obviously it's something you struggle with. I'm hearing from you, and how important it is for these red flag laws, and also just having access to these guns, and why it's so important that we understand this when we're talking about responsible gun ownership and preventing kids from getting access to guns, or somebody that's mentally unstable, or a domestic abuser, right?
Right. So, especially with this being Suicide Awareness Month and next month being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, these are both extremely top of mind issues for me. Suicide ideation is someone who has thought of and planned their own means of killing themselves. My why for not was my dad, and also that I didn't have an easy means. For suicide, means matter a lot. Right. And it's an over 90% fatality rate of suicide by gun. And with other methods, it's not even close to the same fatality rate. So it really does make a lot of difference to remove guns from the situation, to remove easy access. And that's why red flag laws are incredibly important.
Right.
That takes away that momentary accessibility, the in the moment, okay, this is easy, I'm done.
Exactly. No, yes.
It really, red flags do so much for that. And out in rural areas, we don't see as much of the racial aspect of gun violence, but we do see suicide as our big push. Suicide accounts for 2/3 of gun deaths, and out here, a lot of it is rural white male, middle-aged. So right. Working past the stigma of the breadwinner of the house having to shoulder all of life's responsibilities and move forward even when the farm is failing or the marriage is falling apart, or somebody in the family is dealing with a drug addiction. All of that weight in rural communities usually falls on the father figure because that's just how the culture works. And providing resources to make that not an option, whether right. It's through mental health funding or even removing firearms temporarily from the house is a huge way to reduce gun violence.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is, like you said, this opens the door of a conversation that when we were talking at the very beginning about people taking your guns and the people getting sort of activated by the Second Amendment rights, but you're talking about something that people really understand, I mean, on a personal level, and are struggling with. So that it sounds like it is a way to really open that door to converse about safety. We're really talking about, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of ability to relate then, then starting at this big conversation when you're talking about guns, right? And you saw that with the failure of farms and out in the areas with the recession, how many people were killing themselves. This was awful. So I appreciate your work. And I know that I just wanted to say, we're a little bit at time, but I would like to bring up your family around you real quick. Everybody on the Moms Demand, just to say a big thank you. And I hope you can stay after, but I think we need a group hug. We can bring everybody up, especially with Katie here. And it's just a lot in the work you do. And maybe there's just we can go around and we'll end back with Katie, just last words. And when I say quick, I'm always mean it, but just that heartfelt message you want to get out there, especially, and I think Shannon Watts had to leave, so we appreciate her being here. But let's just go around with Sarah, then Melanie, and then Britta and Katie, and just let's hear some last words from you.
Yeah, I mean, I really do want to acknowledge the work that Katie and Mike are doing in rural parts of the state. Highlighting that suicide figure is something I try to do in conversation as well, you know, recognizing that that's a greater portion. But we see you, Katie and Mike, you know, and we so appreciate the work you're doing out there. And, you know, we have what we can do together is in Richmond to give you the power to make laws locally, you know, that we know will help so many people. So I just want to say, I do see you and I so appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for being here.
Go, Miss Sam.
You know, one of the things that I have found the most compelling about Moms Demand Action is because it focuses on preventing gun violence. It has a really important way of simply getting rid of the polarization that's happened in our political political world, right, in our country. Because when you bring it down to public safety, and when you bring it down to let's keep our loved ones safe, let's do everything we can to listen to one another and to listen to one another's stories and experiences and have it matter, and not think when we hear other people's stories, well, that's not going to happen to me or not going to happen in my neighborhood. But, you know, it can happen. That's what everybody thinks before it happens, right? And we're living in a country where it happens way too often because we aren't being responsible about handling the problem in the way that every other country in the world is far more effective at. And so those questions those stories have to matter. They have to matter to us enough that we get moving on it and that we act.
I like it. Get moving on it.
It doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, our political affiliation and our political views on other things need to just be put to the side.
Right.
So that we can do the work that needs to be done so that our families and our loved ones live in a safer world. And that's really all it comes down to. That's really what it's all about.
Okay, Britta.
I want to say, echo exactly what Melanie said, if not double that, and just really what about the children? And I try to, like Melanie, I really try to find common ground. I even found common ground. What was that man named, Melanie? I tried to get him. What was his name? The guy over.
I don't know, but he was VCDL and he was in the Suffolk City Council.
Yeah, he was in charge of the VCDL in the city of Suffolk. And I was like, let's work together. I said, let's work together. We need to find common ground.
That was Philip Van Cleve.
Van Cleve. That was. And I say, so the most important thing is to make sure you can find common ground with everyone. That's the most important thing. That's the conversation I start out. That's what I start out with every conversation with. What about the children? And let's see what we can do to work together. Can we agree on one thing together?
On one thing.
So that's my biggest thing, especially in the different neighborhoods. So thank you.
Thank you. And Katie, again, thank you.
Thank you for bringing us all together. This has been a fantastic panel. The one last thing I would say is to bring your storytellers and to go to the people you don't think will listen to you.
Love it.
My husband and I talked with our GOP House of Delegates representative, who's a straight line Republican, not crazy, but never votes for our things. We came with 3 suicide survivors and talked about how it was a big deal in our community. And he came back and told us he knew 5 people in his community who had lost someone.
Wow.
In the last year.
No, that's powerful.
We've had multiple meetings with him since, and he's friendly with us. From a Republican to want to talk about gun safety, that was huge.
That is huge.
So talk to the people that you don't think agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Katie, for wrapping that up. And thank you. And hopefully some of you can stay for the after chat. And what we'd like to do is remind people, and Robin, that we do want to give, we have those, we love to bring up our tails. We're sorry, we let you know our swag, but we want to donate. We have to get rid of them, and we will want to give those proceeds to Moms Demand Action. And we will probably send, I know that for Stare, we will probably send her along a donation as well. And lastly, Zach, I hope you found Leslie. Talking about the power of women and bringing, you see how moms were able to make this group, how powerful they were. And your mission at Supermajority is to tap into this power as well. So tell us what you're doing at Supermajority. You're the Eastern organizer, living in Provincetown with Leslie over there, the Chihuahua. How are things going? The power of women. What are we doing now with Supermajority? We joined, we're a partner, and we're hoping you're going to be in this election with us in 2021.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, I did not get Leslie because I've been sitting here as part of this presentation, not wanting to leave my screen. So I just want to give a huge shout out and like a virtual round of applause to the Moms Demand Action team. So inspiring to hear about the work. And I specifically just want to give a shout out to Melanie, Sarah, Katie, and Britta. You're brilliant people, and thank you for doing all that you do and being who you are. I'm like so fired up and like reading about like ways that I can learn more about how to end gun violence in state and support those organizing efforts. So anywho, my name is Zach Mooney. I am the Eastern States Organizing Director with Supermajority. And yes, we are also in the game of building political power for women. I am super excited to be kind of leading our Virginia programming this year and to be returning to Virginia. So I should let you all know that your state has a special place in my heart because in 2016, that's where I was an organizer for Hillary Clinton out in Fauquier County. Yes, I was a pink flamingo in a field of black crows out there in Fauquier County, walking around, organizing any Hillary supporter I could. And so Supermajority was really born out of the aftermath of the 2016 election. So I'd love to just give you a quick little like descriptor of who we are and how we're thinking about contacting voters and working to support organizing to make sure that all of the great progress that has happened in state in Virginia over the past few years is like protected and that we're there on the ground with all of you. So Supermajority was founded by Cecile Richards, Alicia Garza, Aizen Poo, and they basically got together because they were tired of women's priorities being sidelined as women's issues. And they decided that if we connect women of all races, geographies, and backgrounds together in solidarity to organize around our values, women could actually become a powerful force that could change the direction of this country. And so we started in 2018 and have been organized in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona heavily in 2020. And as 2021 came around, we were like, Virginia, absolutely, this is a place where we want to harness our membership base of folks who want to volunteer with us in state to join us to get training, to become part of our community that is focused on building political power through grassroots mobilizations. And so what that looks like is we do a lot of organizing, not only just around issues and candidates and people, but around core values and like our dream vision of what the world could be that we call for women, that we call the majority rules. So we're working for a world where the majority rules are actualized. And those majority rules are that women's equity is a given, the humanity and dignity and equality of all people is enshrined, that everyone has a chance to participate, lead, and make their voice heard. And that everyone can decide whether and when to have children, to live in safe communities, to provide care for their loved ones. All people can have their basic human needs satisfied, including universal health care, public education, living wage, a clean environment, and affordable housing. And no matter your race, immigration status, religion, ability, age, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity, that you're going to have a chance to thrive or succeed in this world. So all of that is to say, how are we materializing that in Virginia to harness those values to support the progress that's happened? We are focusing on trying out a form of voter contact you may have heard of. It's called deep canvassing. We call it deep conversations. You may have heard of deep canvassing. And these are longer form conversations with voters where we can slow down and honing in on our focus, particularly on young women who don't always show up in every single election. So having a longer form conversation with them about their values, power, and attempt to change their belief in a more long form fashion about voting.
So is it on the phone, Zach, phone or doors, or what is it?
We're trying it out on the phones this year in the hopes of scaling out into doors. So for everyone's awareness, an organization called People's Action Campaign ran a really successful phone pilot on deep canvassing, deep conversations in 2020. And they learned that in their study was 102 times more impactful at changing belief about Joe Biden than a normal phone conversation that is had where someone just calls you up and spits out a bunch of talking points, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The conversation is really about walking a voter through their own emotional and cognitive dissonance about the thing that is preventing them from voting. And so for us, what we find so often with women, right, is, well, why, I've got so much especially young women, I've got so much stuff going on. Like, why should I care about this? I know voting, matters. But exactly. Why should I actually make time to go and do it? So many times it's, well, hold up. All of these decisions are being made by people that do not understand me, my experiences, my needs. I don't see myself anywhere in government. You want me to go vote for who? And so it's on us and on the work that we're trying to do to slow it down and to take more time with those voters and hone in on our specific little slice in the many, many different organizations that are obviously going to be doing work this year in 2021.
So I have a specific question. So I put this today's show in 3 of your groups, the Super Majority National, Virginia, and our chapter. So I would like us to see about this election, hopefully, for those of the Facebook groups. Hopefully we can activate that group a little bit too with the power lunch, get people in, because this is where we're doing a lot of the action. The deep conversations, our whole summer was about that. In a lot of our training, we did some training with Swing Left. We also had special speakers come in. We are all about the deep conversations, but we really need to reach the young women for this election. So we appreciate the work you do. I hope you can stay a few minutes in the after chat. We're going to wrap this stuff up. We are obviously over time because it's our first Friday back and we're just so excited. So thank you, Zach, and thank you to all the guests for being here. I also want to make sure that I say thank you again to the patrons. I saw that Dorothy came into the room. I said thank you to her, Dorothy Fishering, if you're here, thank you for being a patron. Jane Calloway, Marianne Anderson, Mindy Mitchell, Charlotte Gibson, Kathleen Barnett, Mary Tamburino, Ellen Lamb, and Francesca Constantino. Thank you for your support. So before we leave, make sure you follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube, sign up to be a patron. Who doesn't want to support us for $5 a month? Hey, for it's a cost of a cup of coffee. So thank you. And hopefully you can stay for the after chat. Next week, a little teaser. It's going to be all about that Texas. Do not Texas, Virginia. SB 8, we hate, and we are going to make sure that we are in this fight in a big way in Virginia. We will have NARAL Virginia on with Tarina Keene. We'll have a lot of guests from Planned Parenthood. We were going to have a kick-ass show next week about this issue, about abortion rights, reproductive justice. And so we hope you can join us next week and also get ready to march, fight, write postcards, vote, and just make sure that Virginia stays blue and we stay in community. So thank you again, and thank you, team, and lots of love. See you next Friday.